When we look at the moment we're living in right now, it's one of those historical times that people will look back on and be like, wow, they lived through that. But when you're in it, it kind of sucks, right? Institutions are decaying. Our narratives are fracturing around us. And, is there any trust in anything anymore? I don't feel like it. I have very little trust in the system. I have little trust in our representatives. I have little trust in my neighbors. And it's hard for all of us who want to see a future for our children to make a decision on what to do, because we feel so, I don't want to say hopeless, but we feel like, where do we take action? Obviously, don't drive a car into an ICE agent. That's not what we should be doing. But when I look around, all I can see is, fraud and politics and that lack of trust. And all of us are sitting back saying, this is what we want. Do it. Do the Insurrection Act. Arrest people. Bring justice, right? And, I don't feel like I'm seeing it. I think a lot of us are wondering, when the heck is something going to happen? When is the law of the land going to take action? And it makes a lot of us feel like we're floundering, wondering, when's the first gunshot of a revolution going to come to show its face, right? Was Renee Good running into a police officer and getting shot? Was that the first shot of the revolution? I don't know. I mean, maybe it already happened. Maybe Charlie Kirk was the answer. I don't know. I mean, it feels like we are in the brink of a civil war, right? And through all of that and through everything that's going on, I just see a lot of people saying, what's going to happen? What can somebody do something? Can we move forward with this? Can we fix this? Can we change this? And it's a lot more questions than answers. A lot more despair and look what's happening versus solutions. And so I've been thinking about what I could do this episode 11 on. And I think we should roll back. I think we should talk about where we are in history and where if we want to aim in a certain direction and steer, if we look back at history, we might actually be able to figure out what we should be doing, what works, who comes out on top. If we look at it from that grander view further back, we might actually have a chance at making a difference, right? Instead of just sitting here twiddling our thumbs wondering what's going to happen tomorrow, because something's going to happen tomorrow. Protesters in the street everywhere, paid protesters in my point of view. But let's look back at history. Let's take a look. I think that we're going to find some really interesting directions that we can go with this. And also, it might be reassuring to see how history has turned out over and over and who is going to end up on top. At least, I hope. Right? All right. Hey everybody, this is JJ Jeffrey. I am JJ Jeffrey here at Homestead Republic, and I wanted to talk today in episode 11 about history, about the whole idea of the fourth turning and the direction that maybe we're going, and I don't know, to just give us some hope on the future when we are riddled in chaos right now. I mean, riddled. That just every day something new's happening, from Maduro getting captured in Venezuela to Mamdani getting sworn in New York, a communist, to Renee Good trying to run over an ICE agent and getting shot for it, to the fraud and scandals going on in our politics and our NGO systems, the Somalis. I mean, there's so many things that I could take the whole episode just describing all of the things. But that's not where we're going to go. We're going to talk about the historical side of things and where we kind of fit in. So let's look at how we've grown legacies, right? How we've come out stronger through the chaos. Because some people lose it all and some people come out on top. And I know which one I want to be. And if you recognize that you're in a time of crisis and chaos, you can make the right decisions for your family and yourself to survive and to come out on the other side with something better. We do know change is here. And the past that we used to know is not the future that we are going to be acquainted to. One of the first things I wanted to point out is that, and I say this in many of my episodes, is that we need to shrink our dependence on these systems that are failing. So, I mean, every time throughout history, the pattern's the same. Dependent people collapse with the system. Independent people come out on top and are more resilient and end up with more money, end up with a better legacy, and end up doing far better, right? So, I mean, when Rome fell and started falling, it didn't happen in a day. It happened over a long period of time. And the families who made it out the best were the ones that moved out of the cities, acquired land, learned trades, stored food, and made themselves productive within their communities. During the Great Depression, it was the same way. Families who survived best were not the ones who had the most money, although, I mean, there are a few examples of people who took advantage of everybody's money. But they were the people who already were growing their own food, raising their own livestock, knew how to fix their own tools, had skills already, and were in trusted communities with their neighbors. If you don't have those things right now, those are the things that are going to help you make it through, whether we have a civil war, whether the power goes out, whether, I mean, there's so many different things that could go. Another pandemic happens. These are the things that make people survive. Another example is the fall of the Soviet Union. People who depended on the state, well, they lost everything. I mean, they starved. And it was the black market traders and the craftsmen and the farmers and the small business owners that were able to provide for the people. They were the ones that became the new middle class overnight. It was because they didn't depend on the systems. Historically, where we are now, that is a good place to put yourself and your family. Again, I think I said it in the last episode, and the one before that, shrink your dependency on the system. Number 2, fortify your core. I mean, I'm talking about your family, your community. Make it strong. I think, I mean, I've said this in every episode. Again, these are repetitions, but they're what have worked throughout history, right? So when the Roman Empire collapsed, the big central systems fell, and it was the faith groups, it was the churches, it was the small villages that made it through because they were resilient. They didn't require the centralized systems of a big government. During World War II, I mean, entire cities in Europe were leveled, but families and groups and faith groups or different farming groups who were able to stay together and protect their children together, they were able to continue their generations on, while people who were stuck in these cities, these central areas, they lost everything. Here, another example, in China's Cultural Revolution, I mean, they tore society apart. Families who preserved tradition quietly, because it had to be quiet, they were able to preserve their civilization. And I think that's a big one, is preserving our civilization and the things that we want to keep into the future. I watched this video the other day of this Islamic woman saying, Islam founded America, and all of these complete falsities about our history. That's what happens when a group takes over. They can subvert real history and make the future believe in something that's not that wasn't true, because they're the winners. So make sure you're holding on to the history of our civilization so that it can be preserved. I'm not saying Muslims are going to win over our country or anything like that. I'm just saying, let's make sure that we hold on to the reality of truth and what really happened. I mean, even keeping journals, making sure that people know the actual incidents that happened, so that we don't get lost in a false history, right? I mean, hopefully something like X will help with that, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with technology, the internet, solar flares? Who knows? I mean, it could be all lost if it's not kept in multiple forms. And I mean, if you look at the Native Americans, they've kept their history vocally through storytelling, and that might be something that you get going with your own children, so that we can pass on true history, because the truth matters in keeping our families, our communities, and our civilization alive. Okay, number 3, build parallel systems before they're needed, before things crash and burn. And I'm telling you this now, but we're already in the slow crash and burn phase. Maybe we're in a civil war already. Maybe in the future they'll say that the Civil War started a few months ago or a few years ago. Who knows? For me now, I feel like we're wondering when it's going to start, and maybe it has, right? So during the American Revolution, the colonies didn't wait for Britain to come in and fight them. They sent the Declaration of Independence and said, we are becoming independent of you. They did it first. They didn't wait for Britain to come over and be mad at them for not paying their taxes, right? They built local councils, militias, trade networks, newspapers. I mean, they were their own functioning society before they decided, hey, we're breaking the ties with you. And I think I'm not saying that we need to break the ties with America. I'm just saying there's 2 very different, maybe more, narratives right now. And you're generally on one side of the narrative or the other. And we need to start making sure that we have systems and ways of life that are not dependent on a centralized system falling, right? So during communist expansion in Eastern Europe, there were already underground schools and churches and trade networks, because everybody could feel that things were falling apart. Everybody can feel that things are falling apart now. And if we don't create those systems and those local networks, which I think we already are, but if you're not a part of it, you're going to get left behind. So make sure that you're part of some of these local networks. I mean, we just recently joined this group kind of chat called Meshtastic. I belayed my husband up a tree yesterday so that he could put a new node in and reach more people. And it's a decentralized communication system between the people near you. He put up a node, he's probably going to put up a few others, and now we have these little radios that are attached to the system, And if things happen, we can talk to a community of people, which is a big deal in a scenario that is a civil war, right? Or there's so many different scenarios that could happen, but something's got to give, is what I'm saying. And if you have that community of people who you can communicate with, you're going to be in a stronger stance. Another really big one that we need to be looking at, because if you look through history, and these events continue to happen generationally, we can look at falls of nations and see that one of the things that the people of that nation who come out stronger do is they preserve their identity. They preserve the literacy, the history, the philosophy, the culture of who they were before, so that when they restart and rekindle the fire of a new civilization, they hold on to those values and morals and information that was so valuable and that made them who they are, right? I mean, if we don't hold on to that and pass those kinds of things on to the future generations, they're things that get lost in history and make us stronger, right? Like I was saying about the woman who said, no, this is the real history of the United States. Muslims founded it. If we don't hold on, it's the people who hold on to the narrative the strongest and make sure that history actually moves on. Those are the people who continue to have a hold on civilization into the future. And that's been shown over and over, whether it's in Europe and Rome, to Japan, to even Russia itself. So, and America. So holding on to those traditions, those values, that culture, and making sure that that comes out on top after everything's sifted, that makes sure that we don't get subverted in the future. Number 5 is turning disruption, like it's going on now, into opportunity. That can mean so many things, but I think one of the big ones is acquiring land that you can, I'm not going to say create self-sufficiency out of, because that's a hard thing to do, but to create community sufficiency out of. Again, in the Great Depression, it was the agricultural backbone of America that helped us get out of the Depression. It kept us afloat. And so if we don't have strong networks like that are decentralized from the main, USDA, HSS, just needing all of these regulations and rules, if we don't build something outside of that, we are going to be pretty hungry. Hunger's a big one that people who can provide for themselves or for their community are going to do far better through a destabilization event that we seem to be going through, right? Entrepreneurs, if you know how to start your own business or have something to provide for your community, you're going to do better. And that's how it's been all over the world through these kinds of events. Also, traders and craftsmen, people who know how to do things are, they come out on top. So, I mean, I'd want you to think about this for yourself. Are you capable? Are you a capable person? I hope so. But not all of us are. And if you're not, find something that you're passionate about and become capable in it. Become somebody who, none of your friends knows how to do this and you do. And so you can provide that service for people who don't know how to do it. I mean, it could be anything from fixing a car to baking bread to raising sheep. I mean, there's so many different things. Blacksmithing. I mean, hobbies. Hobbies can turn into things that are so important for keeping yourself and your family afloat for the future. Chaos doesn't just destroy our communities. It reassigns power to the people who were prepared for it. And that's what I'm That's what I'm getting at here. If you look through history, people who prepared for the uncertainty and kind of knew where they were heading and what they were going to do, even if they didn't know what the outcome was going to be, whether right or left's going to win, you still land on top because you have the skills or the products to give out that are going to make the community survive. So it feels like we're at the end of an era. Not the end of the world, the end of an era. And we don't know what's going to come of it. History is not going to collapse overnight. It's going to transition into something new. And every great reset of civilization follows a pattern. Institutions decay, narratives fracture, trust evaporates, and then slowly a new order emerges. I'm going to say out loud here that I hope it's not globalism. I really don't think it will be. I think that it's going to be a return to agrarian futures, pretty to me. If everybody was, back out on the land. That doesn't mean that I'm against technology. I think that that's something we need too. It's going to be something completely new. It's a transition to something that's going to be beautiful and hopefully not a collectivist vision, as that's what I'm not for. While the old world is dying, the new one hasn't formed yet. We are in this space of violence, of screaming and yelling and instability and confusion, and that's totally normal in history. And many people have had to live through it. And when we get to the other side, it's going to be kind of cool that we got to be the ones that live through this. I try to stay positive through all this. As long as we don't have to get stuck in this terrible, awful civil war. The left is rising up and so angry and mad at the world, and they think ICE is this terrible force, when the other side of the table thinks that ICE is saving America. We understand that the economics of bringing everybody into our country doesn't work, and we think that removing these people who do not help us is and really just leech off of us is the answer to a better future. And those two diabolical different ideas, I don't know how we're going to coincide in this country, unless we can get the other side to understand. Anyways, the people who thrive in these moments of confusion are not the ones that are the loudest. They're not the ones that are protesting in the streets, unfortunately, for the left. They're the ones that are steadfast, that know what they want and are already living the lives that they want. And I really think that that's us. Historically, there's a certain kind of thing that just continues to come out on top. So the ideology that prevails. And I just want to go through that really fast because I think it's really heartwarming to hear the type of thing that prevails through these chaotic times. And that's systems that work. Now, did DEI work? No, it fell apart. Has communism worked? No, it's always fallen apart and caused mass painful chaos, right? We can't let that take over our country. So the things that survive these kind of fourth turning events are family, our faith, our local community, productive enterprises, moral coherence, and a shared national identity. And I really think that fits pretty well with the conservative side of things. The things that fail, now get this, over-centralized power, ideological absolutism, economic fantasies, like communism, and socially engineered ideas that are divorced from human nature. Sounds like our side's winning again. The future's unlikely to be something that's like a borderless, technocratic, global regime. Good. right? That because it doesn't work out. It doesn't fit in nature's way. It's this utopian dream that doesn't actually work. The gears don't actually mesh. What comes out of these fourth turning events are regrounded civilizations they're built on sovereignty, on responsibility, on decentralization, on stable families and durable values that have lasted through time, traditions. And these are the kind of things that come out as the winners in these events. And while the systems may be simplified and we might lose a lot of the things, maybe the products that we're used to having, the heart of our future is resoundingly on our side if you look through how history has turned out over and over. So that's kind of a nice thing to hear. And I hope that even though we're watching all this craziness happen, that we can kind of stand back and recognize that these are the throes of a society that is failing and that we already know which direction society needs to go. Sure, the steps aren't being taken to get there yet, but ultimately, it has to go that way. Ultimately, the politicians who are stealing from us are going to fall. Ultimately, the ideologies that don't rationally work, they're going to end. And people might be throwing fits and protesting in the streets and be angry about not getting what they want, but I hate to say, history is going to treat you in the wrong. The real future always lines up with human nature, with how nature works, and that's going to be simplified systems. It's going to be stronger families. It's going to be homes that are built as refuges that people can survive within a community with. The future is going to be built on like skills that matter and communities that trust each other and traditions that are passed on to our kids and have always been passed on to our children. Not these new traditions of you can be whatever you want. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It makes people sad and unhappy and have anxiety and unhealthy. And that's how does that end up on top? It doesn't. The healthy, happy way of life, the traditional way of life, it's what's going to sift up to the top. And it's what has throughout history. And so I want to bring it all home with that we shouldn't be panicking. We shouldn't be outraged. We can be frustrated because I sure as heck am. Through empires that fall, through markets that crash, and narratives that burn up around us, and ideologies that don't work, the thing that makes it through all of them is families and communities that build legacy systems that are decentralized, and the same ones through history continues to survive. I'm reading a book right now or listening to a book right now called Durable Trades, and it's about trades that have always made it through these transitions in history, and families who stick with these trades and pass them on always end up on top. You know, you get out of debt and you start a ranch or become a shepherd or have a farm or some of the oldest traditions, carpentry, there's just midwifery. These are things that if you know how to do them, you will always be needed. And that's what I'm pointing towards. If you work as a computer scientist, I'm not so sure your job is going to be there forever, because we don't know what direction things are going to go. But building a resiliency for your family and your community is the answer. And it's the way people come out on top after history repeats itself. So hopefully I wasn't too repetitive. That's something I'm working on. But I hope you all have a safe next week as things continue to become more and more chaotic. I hope you can find your purpose and what your family should be doing within the community around you. And I hope your homes stay bright and your hearts stay courageous, because that's what we need to get through this fourth turning. Again, we can be outraged and frustrated, but know that the future is ours. It already is. Have a good night. Later.